Captain Lena Novak gazed out at the star-studded expanse of space from the observation deck of the TSS Odyssey, a sense of excitement and trepidation coursing through her veins. As the commander of this state-of-the-art exploration vessel, she bore the weight of humanity's hopes and dreams on her shoulders. The Odyssey's mission was to push the boundaries of known space, to seek out new worlds and potential allies in an increasingly hostile galaxy. Beside her stood Dr. Avery Singh, the ship's lead synorchaeologist, his dark eyes glinting with anticipation. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates of the anomaly detected by our long-range sensors. It appears to be an artificial structure of unknown origin." Lena nodded, her gaze fixed on the viewscreen as the planet came into view. It was a desolate world, its surface a mottled brown and gray, pockmarked with craters and jagged canyons. Yet there, nestled in the heart of a vast impact basin, stood a towering structure that defied explanation. It rose from the planet's surface like a gleaming spire, its smooth, metallic surface unmarred by the ravages of time. "Incredible," breathed Dr. Singh, his voice filled with awe. "The structure appears to be ancient, predating any known civilization in this sector of the galaxy. We must investigate further." Lena turned to her first officer, Commander Ezra Donovan, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a neatly trimmed beard. "Assemble an away team, Commander. We're going down to the surface to take a closer look." As the away team prepared to disembark, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of a monumental discovery. Little did she know that their actions on this uncharted world would unleash a chain of events that would change the course of human history forever. The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere of the planet, kicking up clouds of dust as it landed at the base of the towering structure. Lena stepped out onto the alien soil, her magnetic boots crunching on the rocky terrain. Behind her, Dr. Singh and a team of scientists and security personnel fanned out, their eyes wide with wonder as they beheld the ancient edifice up close. "Fan out and establish a perimeter," Lena ordered, her hand resting on the grip of her holstered plasma pistol. "Dr. Singh, you're with me. We're going to take a closer look at that structure." As they approached the base of the spire, Lena couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The structure was unlike anything she had ever seen before, its smooth, seamless surface seemingly impervious to the ravages of time. There were no visible openings or markings, no clues as to its purpose or the identity of its creators. Dr. Singh ran his gloved hand over the structure's surface, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Captain, I'm detecting an energy signature emanating from within the structure. It's faint, but it's definitely there." Lena's heart raced as she considered the implications. Could this be the discovery they had been searching for? A source of power or technology far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupted from the base of the structure, engulfing the away team in a searing white radiance. Lena threw up her hands to shield her eyes, her skin prickling with the sensation of raw energy coursing through her body. As the light faded, Lena blinked away the spots dancing before her eyes, her vision slowly clearing. What she saw next made her blood run cold. Standing before them, silhouetted against the alien structure, were a dozen figures clad in sleek, form-fitting armor of a design she had never seen before. Their faces were obscured by opaque visors, but Lena could feel the weight of their gazes upon her, the air crackling with an almost palpable tension. One of the figures stepped forward, a tall, imposing man with broad shoulders and a commanding presence. He raised a gloved hand, and the visor of his helmet retracted, revealing a chiseled, angular face with piercing blue eyes. "I am Commander Zephyr of the Human Guardians," he said, his voice deep and resonant, echoing with an otherworldly cadence. "And you, Captain Lena Novak of the TSS Odyssey, have made a grave mistake." Lena's hand tightened on the grip of her plasma pistol, her heart pounding in her chest. She had faced many challenges in her career as a Terran Expeditionary Force officer, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. What are you?" she managed to say, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to maintain her composure. And what do you mean? We've made a mistake. Commander Zephyr's gaze bore into her, his eyes seeming to pierce the very depths of her soul. You have awakened us from our slumber, Captain. We are the human guardians, genetically enhanced warriors created by the ancient Terrans to protect humanity from the dangers that lurk in the depths of space. Dr. Singh stepped forward, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. But that's impossible. The ancient Terrans lived millennia ago, before humanity even developed spaceflight. How could they have created something like you? Zephyr's lips curled in a humorless smile. The Terrans of old were far more advanced than you give them credit for, Doctor. They foresaw the threats that would one day face humanity, and they created us to be their ultimate defense. Lena's mind raced as she tried to process this revelation. The human guardians, genetically enhanced warriors from Earth's distant past. It was a concept that defied belief, and yet the evidence stood before her, undeniable and utterly terrifying. And what is this grave mistake we've supposedly made? Lena asked, trying to keep her voice steady. We're explorers, seeking knowledge and understanding. We meant no harm by coming here. Zephyr shook his head, his expression grave. Your actions have set in motion a chain of events that could spell doom for the entire galaxy. By awakening us, you have also awakened an ancient enemy, one that seeks to destroy all life as we know it. Lena's breath caught in her throat, a chill running down her spine. What enemy? What are you talking about? Zephyr's gaze hardened, his voice taking on a tone of grim determination. The Vorgax, Captain. A race of alien conquerors who once sought to enslave the galaxy. We fought them long ago, driving them back into the depths of space. But now, with our awakening, they too will rise, seeking to finish what they started so long ago. Lena's mind reeled with the implications of Zephyr's words. An ancient alien race, bent on conquest and destruction. It seemed like something out of a science fiction novel, and yet the evidence stood before her, undeniable and terrifying. What can we do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How can we stop this Vorgax? Zephyr's expression softened, a glimmer of hope shining in his piercing blue eyes. You must trust us, Captain. We were created to protect humanity, and that is what we shall do. But we cannot do it alone. We will need the help of the Terran Expeditionary Force, and all the resources and technology at your disposal. Lena nodded, a newfound sense of purpose rising within her. She may have stumbled into this situation by accident, but she would be damned if she let some ancient alien threat destroy everything she held dear. We'll do whatever it takes, she said, her voice ringing with determination. The TSS Odyssey and her crew are at your disposal, Commander Zephyr. Together, we'll face this Vorgax threat and protect humanity, no matter the cost. And with those words, a new chapter in human history began. The human guardians had awakened, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Only time would tell if Captain Lena Novak and her crew would be up to the challenge that lay ahead. As the shock of the human guardians' revelation wore off, Captain Lena Novak found herself grappling with a new reality. The fate of humanity, and indeed the entire galaxy, now rested on the shoulders of her crew and these enigmatic warriors from Earth's distant past. Commander Zephyr, his imposing figure clad in sleek, advanced armor, stood before her, his piercing blue eyes filled with a sense of urgency. Captain Novak, we must act quickly. The Vorgax will not remain idle for long, and we must be prepared for their inevitable onslaught. Lena nodded, her mind racing with the implications of the task ahead. What do you propose, Commander? How can we possibly hope to stand against a threat like the Vorgax? Zephyr's lips curled in a grim smile. We have faced them before, Captain, and we will face them again. But to do so, we must first awaken the rest of the human guardians, scattered across the galaxy in hidden stasis chambers like the one you discovered here. Dr. Avery Singh, the ship's xenorchaeologist, stepped forward, his eyes wide with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Stasis chambers. You mean there are more of you out there, waiting to be awakened? Zephyr nodded, his gaze drifting to the towering structure that had housed his own stasis chamber. Hundreds more, Dr. Singh. Each one a warrior of unparalleled skill and genetic enhancement, created to defend humanity against the threats that lurk in the depths of space. Lena felt a chill run down her spine at the thought of an army of genetically enhanced warriors, hidden away for millennia, waiting to be called upon in humanity's darkest hour. It was a concept that both terrified and exhilarated her. "How do we find them?" she asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. Zephyr reached into a compartment on his armor, retrieving a small crystalline device that pulsed with an ethereal blue light. "This is a quantum resonance beacon, Captain. It will guide us to the locations of the other stasis chambers scattered across the galaxy." Lena's eyes widened as she beheld the alien device, a testament to the advanced technology of the ancient Terrans. "Then we have our mission, Commander. We will find these stasis chambers and awaken the rest of the human guardians. Together, we will stand against the Vorgax and protect humanity, no matter the cost." And so, the crew of the TSS Odyssey set out on a new mission, one that would take them to the furthest reaches of the galaxy in search of the hidden stasis chambers and the warriors they contained. As they traveled, Lena found herself spending more and more time with Commander Zephyr, drawn to his quiet strength and unwavering dedication to his mission. He spoke of the ancient Terrans and their vision for humanity's future, of the sacrifices they had made to ensure that the human guardians would be there to protect their descendants. "The Terrans of old knew that the universe was a dangerous place, Captain," Zephyr said, his voice soft and reflective. "They knew that humanity would one day venture out into the stars and face threats beyond their wildest imaginations. That is why they created us, to be the ultimate defenders of the human race." Lena nodded, her heart swelling with a newfound sense of pride and purpose. "And we will not let their sacrifice be in vain, Commander. We will fight alongside you, and we will prevail." As they journeyed from world to world, following the pulsing light of the quantum resonance beacon, they encountered wonders and horrors beyond their wildest dreams. Ancient ruins, long-dead civilizations, and strange, alien creatures that defied explanation. And with each stasis chamber they discovered, the ranks of the human guardians grew. Men and women of unparalleled skill and strength, each one a warrior forged in the fires of genetic enhancement and trained in the art of war. Among them was Lieutenant Kaya Nakamura, a lithe, deadly warrior with raven hair and eyes that glinted with the fire of 1,000 suns. She moved with a grace and precision that left Lena breathless, her every motion a dance of death and destruction. And then there was Sergeant Riker Vasquez, a mountain of a man with a scar that ran the length of his rugged face. He was a warrior of few words, but when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries of battle and sacrifice. Together, this unlikely alliance of Terran explorers and ancient warriors prepared for the fight of their lives, the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy itself. But even as they readied themselves for the coming storm, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this conflict than met the eye. The Vorgax were a threat, to be sure, but there was something else lurking in the shadows, a deeper mystery that tugged at the edges of her consciousness. And as the human guardians continued to awaken, Lena began to suspect that their true purpose was far greater than simply defending humanity against an alien threat. There was a reason they had been created, a destiny that had been set in motion millennia ago by the ancient Terrans. What that destiny was, Lena could only guess. But one thing was certain: the crew of the TSS Odyssey and their newfound allies, the human guardians, would face it together, united in their determination to protect humanity and unravel the secrets of the universe itself. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but Lena knew that they could not falter. The fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders, and they would not rest until the Vorgax were defeated and the true purpose of the human guardians was revealed. And so they pressed on, into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For they were the defenders of humanity, the last hope in a galaxy on the brink of destruction. And they would not fail, no matter the cost. As the TSS Odyssey and its crew raced across the galaxy, awakening the human guardians from their ancient slumber, a new threat emerged from the depths of space. The Vorgax, the ancient enemy that Commander Zephyr had warned of, had finally made their move. Reports began to flood in from across the Terran colonies, each one more terrifying than the last. Massive alien warships, bristling with advanced weapons and technology, had appeared in the skies above a dozen worlds, their hulls emblazoned with the cruel, angular sigil of the Vorgax Empire. The Terran Defense Forces, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, fought bravely but were quickly overwhelmed. The Vorgax ships tore through their defenses like tissue paper, their weapons cutting through shields and armor with terrifying ease. On the bridge of the TSS Odyssey, Captain Lena Novak watched the reports with a growing sense of dread. The Vorgax were even more powerful than she had feared, their technology far beyond anything the Terran Expeditionary Force had ever encountered. "We have to do something," she said, her voice tight with barely contained anger. "We can't just sit back and watch as the Vorgax slaughter our people." Commander Zephyr, standing beside her, nodded grimly. "Agreed, Captain. But we must be cautious. The Vorgax are a formidable enemy, and we cannot afford to underestimate them." Lena turned to the view screen, where the images of burning colonies and shattered defenses played out in horrifying detail. "What do you propose, Commander? How can we hope to stand against a force like this?" Zephyr's eyes narrowed, his jaw set with determination. "We fight, Captain. We fight with every weapon at our disposal, every warrior under our command. And we pray that it will be enough." And so, the TSS Odyssey and its crew, now joined by a growing force of human guardians, set out to meet the Vorgax head-on. They struck at the enemy's supply lines, raiding their convoys and sabotaging their outposts, all the while gathering what intelligence they could on the Vorgax's plans and capabilities. Lieutenant Kaya Nakamura, her raven hair flowing behind her like a banner, led a series of daring strikes against Vorgax strongholds, her blades flashing in the darkness as she cut through the enemy's defenses with deadly precision. Sergeant Riker Vasquez, his massive frame encased in power armor, waded into the thickest of the fighting, his weapons spitting fire and death as he fended off wave after wave of Vorgax warriors. And all the while, Commander Zephyr and Captain Novak worked tirelessly to coordinate their efforts, poring over star maps and intelligence reports, trying to find some weakness in the Vorgax's seemingly impenetrable defenses. But even as they fought, a growing sense of unease began to take hold among the human guardians and their Terran allies. The Vorgax's tactics were brutal and efficient, their warriors seemingly endless in number. And yet there was something else, something that tugged at the edges of their consciousness, a deeper mystery that they could not quite grasp. It was Dr. Avery Singh who first gave voice to their fears. "There's something not right here," he said, his brow furrowed in concentration as he studied the latest intelligence reports. "The Vorgax's movements, their tactics, it's all too precise, too calculated. It's almost as if they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it." Lena felt a chill run down her spine at the doctor's words. She had sensed it too, the nagging feeling that the Vorgax were always one step ahead, that they were playing a game whose rules only they understood. And then, in a moment of terrible clarity, it all fell into place. The Vorgax weren't just invading. They were searching for something. Something that had been hidden away long ago. Something that the ancient Terrans had sought to keep safe from the galaxy's prying eyes. "The Vorgax are looking for the key," Commander Zephyr said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The key to unlocking the true power of the human guardians." Lena's eyes widened in shock. "The key? What key?" Zephyr shook his head, his expression grim. "I do not know, Captain. The knowledge was lost long ago, even to us. But if the Vorgax find it, if they unleashed the full might of the human guardians. He did not need to finish the thought. They all knew what it would mean. The end of everything they had fought for, the end of humanity itself. And so, the race was on. The TSS Odyssey and its crew, the human guardians and their Terran allies, against the full might of the Vorgax Empire, a desperate search for a key that held the fate of the galaxy in its grasp. The battles raged on, each one more desperate than the last. The Vorgax, sensing that their prize was within reach, threw everything they had at the defenders, their ships darkening the skies above 100 worlds. But the human guardians would not yield. They fought with a ferocity that even the Vorgax could not match, their genetically enhanced bodies pushed to the very limits of endurance. And through it all, Captain Lena Novak and Commander Zephyr stood tall, their bond forged in the fires of war, their determination unbreakable. They would find the key, they vowed, no matter the cost. And when they did, they would use it to unleash the full might of the human guardians, to drive the Vorgax back into the darkness from whence they came. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the crew of the TSS Odyssey would not rest until it was secure. For they were the defenders of humanity, the last hope in a universe on the brink of oblivion. And they would not fail, even if it meant sacrificing everything they held dear. For in the end, that was the price of victory, the cost of ensuring that the light of humanity would continue to shine, no matter how dark the night. As the war against the Vorgax raged on, Captain Lena Novak found herself faced with an impossible choice. The enemy was closing in, their forces growing stronger with each passing day, and the key to unlocking the true power of the human guardians remained elusive. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, Lena and Commander Zephyr reached out to the Terran leadership, pleading for their support in the fight against the Vorgax. But the response they received was not what they had hoped for. "You want us to work with these genetic abominations." Admiral Ilara Voss, the head of the Terran Expeditionary Force, said incredulously. "Have you lost your mind, Captain Novak?" Lena stood her ground, her eyes blazing with determination. "Admiral, with all due respect, we don't have a choice. The Vorgax are winning, and without the help of the human guardians, we don't stand a chance." Voss's expression hardened, her lips pressed into a thin line. "And what makes you think we can trust these creatures, Captain? For all we know, they could turn on us the moment the Vorgax are defeated." Commander Zephyr stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Admiral Voss, I give you my word as a warrior and a defender of humanity that we will not betray you. Our only goal is to protect our people, to ensure that the light of human civilization continues to shine." Voss hesitated, her gaze flickering between Lena and Zephyr. "And what of this key you seek? What will happen if you find it?" Lena met the Admiral's gaze unflinchingly. "We will use it to end this war, Admiral. To drive the Vorgax back into the darkness and ensure that they never threaten humanity again." For a long moment, Voss was silent, her expression unreadable. Then, with a heavy sigh, she nodded. "Very well, Captain Novak. You have your alliance. But mark my words, if the human guardians prove to be a threat to humanity, I will not hesitate to take action." With the reluctant support of the Terran leadership, Lena and her crew set out on a series of joint missions with the human guardians, striking at Vorgax supply lines and gathering what intelligence they could on the enemy's movements. But even as they worked together, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The Terran soldiers, many of whom had lost friends and loved ones to the Vorgax onslaught, viewed the human guardians with suspicion and mistrust, their genetically enhanced abilities a reminder of the unnatural nature of their existence. And the human guardians, for their part, chafed under the constant scrutiny and questioning of their motives. They were warriors, bred and trained for a single purpose, and the politics and machinations of the Terran leadership were foreign to them. Lena found herself caught in the middle, struggling to keep the fragile alliance together even as the pressure mounted on all sides. She spent long hours in meetings with Terran officials, arguing for the necessity of the human guardians' involvement, while at the same time working to reassure Zephyr and his warriors that their sacrifices would not be in vain. But even as they fought and bled together, the question of the key and its true purpose lingered in the back of everyone's minds. The Vorgax's search for the artifact had only intensified, and with each passing day, the likelihood of them finding it grew ever greater. And then, in a moment of shocking revelation, the truth was unveiled. The key was not a physical object, but rather a code, a sequence of genetic markers that, when activated, would unleash the full potential of the human guardian's abilities. The implications were staggering. With the power of the key, the human guardians would become an unstoppable force, their strength and speed enhanced beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. But at the same time, the risk of such power falling into the wrong hands was too great to ignore. Lena and Zephyr knew that they had to act fast, to find the key before the Vorgax could get their hands on it. But the search would not be easy, and the stakes had never been higher. As they raced across the galaxy, following what clues they could find, the tensions within the Alliance grew ever more strained. The Terran soldiers, many of whom had come to respect and even admire the human guardian's bravery and skill, began to question the wisdom of placing so much power in the hands of a few genetically enhanced warriors. And the human guardians, sensing the growing unease among their allies, became ever more wary and distrustful, their loyalty to their own kind overriding any sense of obligation to the Terran cause. Lena knew that she was running out of time, that the fragile peace she had worked so hard to maintain was on the verge of shattering. But she also knew that she could not give up, that the fate of the galaxy depended on her ability to hold the Alliance together, no matter the cost. And so, she pressed on, her determination unbreakable, her resolve unwavering. She would find the key, and with it, the power to end the Vorgax threat once and for all. But even as she searched, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of her mind. What would happen when the war was over, when the human guardian's purpose had been fulfilled? Would they quietly fade into the background, their duty done? Or would they become a new threat, a power too great for any one species to control? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. The alliance between the Terran Expeditionary Force and the human guardians, forged in the fires of war and tempered by the bonds of shared sacrifice, would be tested as never before, and the fate of the galaxy would hang in the balance, waiting for the final verdict to be rendered. As the search for the key reached its climax, the Vorgax launched a massive offensive against the Terran homeworld, Earth. Their ships darkened the skies, their weapons tearing through the planet's defenses with brutal efficiency. The Terran Expeditionary Force, battered and bloodied from months of relentless fighting, rallied to the defense of their home, throwing every ship and soldier they had into the fray. But it was a losing battle, and everyone knew it. On the bridge of the TSS Odyssey, Captain Lena Novak watched the carnage unfold with a heavy heart. She had seen too much death and destruction in this war, too many brave men and women sacrificed in the name of a cause they barely understood. Beside her, Commander Zephyr stood tall and proud, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "We have to find the key," he said, his voice grave. "It's the only way to end this, once and for all." Lena nodded, her jaw set. "We will find it, Commander. And when we do, we'll make the Vorgax pay for every life they've taken." As the battle raged around them, Lena and Zephyr led a desperate mission to the heart of the Vorgax command ship, where they believed the key to be hidden. They fought their way through hordes of enemy soldiers, their weapons flashing in the darkness, their armor streaked with the blood of the fallen. And then, at last, they found it. The key, the genetic code that would unleash the full power of the human guardians, was contained within a single unremarkable data crystal, guarded by the most elite of the Vorgax warriors. The battle that followed was the stuff of legend, a clash of titans that would echo through the ages. Lena and Zephyr, joined by Lieutenant Kaya Nakamura and Sergeant Riker Vasquez, fought with a fury and skill that defied belief, their genetically enhanced bodies pushed to the very limits of their endurance. Against all odds, they emerged victorious, the data crystal clutched tightly in Zephyr's hands. But the cost had been high, and the scars of battle would linger long after the fighting had ended. As they made their way back to the TSS Odyssey, Lena couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The key was theirs, but the question of what to do with it weighed heavily on her mind. Zephyr, sensing her hesitation, placed a hand on her shoulder. "The key is a tool, Captain," he said, his voice soft but firm. "A means to an end. It is up to us to ensure that it is used wisely, for the benefit of all humanity." Lena met his gaze, her eyes searching his. "And what of the human guardians, Commander? What will become of you when the war is won?" Zephyr smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "We were created for a purpose, Captain. To defend humanity, to ensure that the light of our species continues to shine. When that purpose is fulfilled, we will fade into the shadows, our duty done." Lena nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision she knew she must make. And then, with a final, determined breath, she gave the order. The key was activated, and the human guardians were unleashed upon the Vorgax like a tidal wave of fury and vengeance. Their strength and speed, enhanced beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, they tore through the enemy ranks like a scythe through wheat, their weapons blazing with the fire of 1,000 suns. The Vorgax, faced with an enemy they could not hope to match, fell back in disarray, their ships fleeing the battlefield in a desperate bid for survival. And as the last of their vessels disappeared into the void, a cheer went up from the Terran forces, a cry of victory that echoed across the stars. But even as they celebrated, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The human guardians had saved humanity, but at what cost? What would become of them, now that their purpose had been fulfilled? In the end, she knew, only time would tell. The galaxy had been forever changed by the events of the war, and the future was a blank canvas, waiting to be painted by the choices of those who had fought and bled for the right to shape it. For now, though, there was only the sweet taste of victory, the knowledge that, for a moment at least, the light of humanity would continue to shine, no matter how dark the night. And as the TSS Odyssey set course for home, its crew battered but unbroken, Captain Lena Novak couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and purpose. They had done the impossible, had faced the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known, and emerged triumphant. The road ahead would be long and hard, and the scars of war would linger for generations to come. But as long as humanity stood together, as long as the human guardians remained true to their purpose, there was nothing they could not overcome. For they were the defenders of the light, the guardians of the future. And they would not rest until the galaxy was safe, and the dream of a better tomorrow was finally within reach.